Chronometry calibrated. The gateway will open in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Analyzing data. Likelihood of parallel universes now at 17%. Continuing analysis of the many worlds hypothesis.
Damn it, you're a listener. You know that podcasts can't be taken away with a wave of a magic wand. The things we carry with us on our phones. The things that keep us from getting bored at work. If we lose them, we lose ourselves. I don't want my podcast taken away. I need my podcast. Welcome, everyone. I'm Gayfish. Joining me, as always, is the lovely Moss.
Hello.
And DemonMama.
Hello.
And today we are continuing our watch through of the Star Trek movies with Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, the one directed by William Shatner. And boy, does it show.
Okay, here we go. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, merrily, merrily,
your
merrily.
boat gently down. All right. I don't know how that's going to sync up on the edit.
Love that. It's like trying to do karaoke in a Discord server.
Yeah, exactly. You can't do duets. It's just the latency.
See, look at what has been taken from us. You know what they used to call a podcast back in the day? Going camping. You'd sit around the fire and say your opinions about things. Okay, so I'm gonna start this review out by saying the Rotten Tomatoes scores and the IMDb scores of this movie are a fascinating historical analysis, because those motherfuckers did not know just how bad it was going to get. Like, this movie has horrible reviews, just abysmal. And while I will admit that, in my opinion, I think this is the worst of the Star Trek movies that we've watched so far, maybe the second worst, depending. I go back and forth, but there is no way that this movie is like a 23% on Rotten Tomatoes. 23% on Rotten Tomatoes is like, when I think of a movie that's that low, like, I think of like Rebel Moon Part 1. Mm-hmm. And when I think of a movie that's like a 10, I think of Rebel Moon Part 2. Like a movie that just, like movies that genuinely just don't make sense. Like, you try to follow what's going on, and there's just the through lines just aren't there. It's like slapped together, shoddy, cheap, tacky.
If you had told me that
offensive.
Zack Snyder used ChatGPT to write the script for Rebel Moon, I would believe you.
I would also believe that. Like but this movie is like people hated this movie so much, and I get some of the dislike for it, but again, reviewers across the years, starting in like 1989, I think is when this movie came out. Yeah. They had no idea just how bad movies were going to get in the future, because
we need to grade this movie on a curve.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's not fair that this movie has like a 27. This is not a 27 out of 100 movie. That's ridiculous. So yeah, there's my opening rant for this movie.
All right, Moss, what are your first thoughts?
I mean, so I know the pattern is, I guess, that like the even numbered ones are the ones that are
good.
Yeah, according to the Star
good.
Trek fandom. Yeah,
yes.
Like within the fandom. I mean, I think that maybe what I'm discovering about myself is that I like bad movies. I mean, like, this one didn't have a strong theme. I was thinking about it, and I'm like, does this movie really have like a message, or am I just like enjoying it because it has good performances? And I think that I was enjoying it because I liked the characters. I really liked Sybok.
There's great character work in this movie.
Yeah. Like, there's some kind of stuff that I view as kind of tropish now, but like, I'm living 50 years in the future, or like 40 years in the future from when this movie came out, or like all of these movies, they've spanned more than a decade now, just these 5 movies that we've seen. So like between then and now, it feels a little tropish in some ways. Like, oh yeah, man of faith, like, he like finds out that the thing that he put his faith in like isn't really what he thought it was, etc. Not a very strong like thematic theme, I guess, but enjoyable film. I'm finding, I think that that's a good thing about me, though, that I can enjoy bad movies and be like, I'm having a great time. Like, I'm just I watched She's the Man. Great movie.
I just watched your review.
Terrible,
on that.
Probably. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. It was a really fun watch. But that's, I just want to have fun when I'm watching movies. So that makes sense.
Yeah. So I actually kind of love this movie, but I love it in a way that you would love like Plan 9 from Outer Space. This is I know there's a riff tracks of this movie. I need to like get that and just watch it with that, because once you realign your expectations and view this as like a schlocky B movie just set in the Star Trek franchise, you're gonna have a good time. I think it is just on the plot elements and like the technical ability and everything. It is the worst movie that we've seen out of these, but I think it's less boring than Search for Spock, and so that says a lot to it. I think the character work, especially with the trio, is phenomenal. I have no complaints about any of the stuff in Yosemite. I think all of the camping stuff with the trio bickering and getting drunk and singing songs is fantastic.
Yeah.
I really like Sybok as a villain. Interestingly, apparently they had originally eyed Sean Connery to play him.
I thought it was him at first.
He was not available because he was doing Indiana Jones. And thank God, because
he would not have brought the Riz to that role that was needed.
No.
I think he would have played Sybok as more of like a pathological megalomaniac.
Yeah.
I don't think he would have brought the sincerity to it that, what was the name of the actor here? I have it written down Lawrence Luckinbill.
Okay.
I think he plays Sybok with an absolute sincerity and a warmth. He's a charismatic cult leader with a conscience and a code of honor that I can't imagine Sean Connery doing that.
Yeah.
Also, because they wanted Sean Connery, that's why they named the planet Shakari.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of like just technical details in the movie that are really bad. They didn't go with ILM. They went with like some no-name effects house to do the special effects, and it really shows.
Liquid dynamics.
It looks really bad. A lot of just the space shots. I mean, obviously there's reused shots, but that's par for the course for these movies. But
there's one where they show the Enterprise like going into, I think it's into the barrier, and it just like it's just a composite, and they just shrink it. It's just shrinking as it like. And it was just the funniest shot I've seen.
Oh, the shot where they dodge the photon torpedo was so
where
funny.
They just go to warp and it just passes them.
We all laughed out loud when we saw that. They're like, It just looks so funny. Yeah, okay, so there's a few things about this movie that I really like, and that I think like why I say it's like it's kind of the worst movie, but also not. And I think one of them is that I'm going to slightly disagree with what Ma said before, which I do think that there are pretty strong themes in this movie that are followed through and like consistent throughout the whole film. And I think in that way it is better than Search for Spock, which I feel is a fairly empty movie in a lot of ways.
Sure. Definitely not as bad as Search for Spock.
So first of all, you have this thing of religion, which the movie is very fixated on religion in more ways than one. There is like, you have the Sybok character, but the Sybok character, he's like a pseudo villain. Like he's framed as a villain for most of the movie, but then towards the end, it becomes the false god who's kind of the villain, which I feel that was a little underbaked. It felt like the ending was a little like, oh, okay, you just revealed a false god and like, what the fuck? But okay. But he's like kind of a villain. And you expect the movie to be like, oh, he mind controls people, which is what I literally thought was happening. Because they're like, so, but as it goes on, it resolves into this discussion of religion, which is that like religion is soothing and essential for some. It is a curiosity for others, like for Spock, where he's like, I saw your vision. It didn't really help me that much. And then for some, it's like, don't touch me with that, which is the Shatner, the Kirk type, where it's like, no, I don't want that. Like, I need my
scene in the movie, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
And not like, obviously the, I need my pain. That's obviously a bit, but like, shout out to DeForest Kelley, the way that he plays out when he realizes what Sybok's showing him, and he just goes, "Oh my God, don't do this to me." You feel the pain. It's there and it's palpable. And what that was is such like a human thing for him to deal with. That's like something that somebody now today is like, oh my God, yeah, I pulled the plug on my dad, and then weeks later they found the cure. Yeah, you would torture yourself for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm. I really love the tight sets. Like, this is what makes film so incredible, when you get those like theater elements of like a tight set, small crew, like very intimate scenes. Yeah, those are good. Anyway, continue.
No, I just thought it was interesting because I think this approaches many different like angles on the discussion of religion. I don't think it's like the most deepest question in the world, and sometimes it's just kind of ham-fisted, like having you meet God and then the God goes, "Would you prefer this form?" and then turns into like some like, you know, Abrahamic God stereotype. But at the same time, there's other stuff. Like I was thinking a lot about the scene between like Scotty after he bumps his head and Uhura, where Uhura has like seen the light and Scotty is like, you know, let's talk about your feelings when you're not in this state. Like, there's so many different views of people. Like, Scotty kind of seems to view the religious rapture as like a form of mind control, and so does Kirk to a certain degree. But it's not. It's them having emotional realizations and having convictions. And in the same way, like, Cybok is not strictly a villain. He has convictions that prove to be that he was misled. And then the movie sort of ends with the question, well, is God really out there? There's another interesting parallel that plays on this theme that I think is like, it shows that like, you know, the writer and the director, William Shatner, were thinking about this, which is there's this conversation when they're singing "Row, row, row your boat" around the campfire, where it's like, for Kirk, he's like, oh, you know, let's sing along, let's do it, and then Spock goes, no, this is illogical. The lyrics are illogical. They don't mean anything. And then Kirk goes, it doesn't matter. It's like about what it makes you feel. It's about doing something together with your friends. And it's funny because, you know, it's functionally the same thing as the question later on a smaller scale, which is that, like, okay, so this guy gave you an emotional vision. It's not a really logical vision. It's something that's purely emotional. It doesn't like give you strength in a magical sense. It gives you strength in an emotional sense. So it serves a purpose, but it doesn't necessarily make sense to everyone. And it's not necessarily the like right thing for everyone. And now obviously the stakes are much lower when we're talking about singing "Row, row, row your boat" at camp. But I think it's interesting that that's like a theme throughout the whole movie that they're playing on, is this like theme of what is religion to people? What's its place? And like, what can it do for people and what are its risks? And I find that interesting. And I like that part of it.
So I'm an atheist and a humanist. And so from in that perspective, like, what was real the whole time was the connections. Like, obviously, like whatever was going on with the God character on Shakari, like there wasn't really much to that. The real like thing that was happening throughout the movie, as far as like the supernatural, that feeling that there's like a supernatural thing happening, is just like a Vulcan using a certain type of like mind connection to create emotional connections. And that ultimately is kind of, if there is something that changes about the main characters, it's that at the end, they're more willing to be vulnerable with each other and to share those feelings that normally they wouldn't be discussing. So it's like, and from that atheist humanist perspective, yeah, like I think religion can benefit people, but the way that it benefits people is through the connections that you make. It's like, that's what actually makes the difference, is showing up for each other, providing space for each other, not like some supernatural thing.
In an ideal world, like, we've got churches on every corner. They should be community centers where neighbors come together and meet and have all of the positive social, cultural aspects of churches without the dogma.
Yeah, totally.
They should just be community centers. You still go there on Sunday, hang out, sing songs. People say, hey, I need help with this, coordinate, network, stuff like that. That's what society is about, you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
One thing that I wanted to point out too, in terms of the whole where it's initially presented as a brainwashing thing, but then we see that, you know, Spock and McCoy are, you know, they're presented with it, but they don't immediately fall in. Originally, Shatner had intended that after Sybok releases Spock and McCoy's pains, they do turn from Kirk and do take Sybok's side. So it was going to be more of a brainwashing thing, but Nimoy refused to play it that way. Nimoy is like, Spock would never. Sorry, not in a million years. And which, props to him. I understand fighting for that. But I also feel like in so doing, in making it explicitly more of a choice, it kind of makes the rest of Kirk's crew mutinous bastards.
Well, yeah.
Unless you just want to view it as them being weaker willed.
I mean, I think that there's like the presentation of it is flawed. And yeah, there is like that aspect of it. I do think that it works better with it not being a mind control than it would have if it was. And partially maybe it's just because I like Star Trek best when it encourages the viewer to ask questions and think through a problem. So where the show doesn't necessarily tell you what their answer is, but instead says, hey, here's like a complex cultural, situation. And there might be, a conclusion that's more apparent or more like, okay, yeah, that's more clear cut than others. But it's always interesting when it walks you through that path. And so I think it works very well with it not being like brainwashing as a way to like discuss like religion and the potential toxic influences of religion and also the potentially positive aspects of religion, like that maybe for some people they need this structure in order to be able to open up, and that is like a real thing that some people encounter. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's a blanket endorsement of religion, but rather that the movie is trying to get you to think about that and think about how that could be a challenge that or a difference that people have to overcome with one another and sort out. And yeah, so I think that I do think it would be a worse movie if it was just mind control, but also there are problems in its current form as well, where I'm like, okay, yeah, it's a little, it seems unrealistic that like most of the crew is just going to be like, yeah, let's take the ship and blast it into the center of the galaxy.
It's interesting. This is actually the second time that the Enterprise went to the center of the galaxy and met a mythical figure from, Earth religions who wasn't what people thought he was. There was an animated series episode called The Magics of Megas 2, where they pass through that Great Barrier and enter into the center of the galaxy, where they find a planet where magic is real. And because it's like, this is the center of the galaxy, this is the point of creation, this matter is being created here, and so there's magic. And they meet a guy with goat legs and horns who calls himself Lucian. And there is revealed at the end that he was once known on Earth as Lucifer. And like his people are trying to put him on trial and sentence him to life imprisonment. But as an immortal being, Kirk argues that's basically the death penalty. I can't get behind that. They're like, yes, but he was Lucifer. He's like, I'm not interested in whatever like legends or myths that you have about him. I'm interested in him as a human being. So kind of a reversal here, because here they're going to meet God, finding out he's the devil. And in that one, they're like, look, the devil's not that bad.
I want to talk of that's awesome. And it sounds like a great episode.
It's a silly episode, but I appreciated what it was going for.
This movie, and I think we have to talk about this. This movie is extremely silly.
Yes.
Down to the fact that, like, of course, like, I feel like it kind of jumps the shark when they literally shoot God in the face. There was so much silliness in this movie. And I will say that, like, some of the silliness is just, like, we're writing in jokes, and those jokes, in my opinion, aren't as like sharp or like really funny. They're just they're a little like cheaper and more slapstick. Like then like especially the last movie, the fourth movie is like so funny. That movie is just constantly witty and funny, and it's like it's genuinely hilarious. This movie has a lot of like, oh, they bump their head, Whoops, they
can't
fell
believe
over.
they literally did that. Scotty just bonks his head. Are we in a fucking cartoon?
I mean, it's funny too because they have another character bonk themselves in 4, and it's just like it's funnier because the setup is better. In this one, it's just like he turned around and hit his head on a piece of metal. On the other one, it's like a product of this, like, oh, they're cloaked in the middle of a park, and it's like slyly nodding at how ridiculous that would be and that people would bump into it, and like. It's just the 4th movie is a little more self-aware and having a little more like awareness. And I just, that said, there are, there are a couple of like genuinely very funny things in this movie, especially the more gay it gets, which I was hoping we could talk about that as well.
The end when Kirk is on the bird of prey and like he grabs Spock by the shoulders and leans in, and Spock is like, please, sir, please, not in front of the Klingons. And it's like, he's going for the kiss.
He's going for the kiss. The part where they're like on the like goofy ass jet boots. And then Spock is just like, you'll have to climb on. And then William Shatner's like, oh boy. And he's just like hanging off of Spock. And then Bones is like, I'll wait for the next car. All right, fine. And then it's just like, oh my God, they're found family and a thruple.
They are
like,
a thruple. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny. I love it. It's like there's so much gay shit in this movie. I love it so much. Like the whole thing of like the whole intro of like Bones being like a worried wife back at camp going, oh no, he's gonna hurt himself. It's like literally that is like the trope in movies. You know, especially older movies, is like exactly that. Like the wife worrying about the husband being like, and then nagging at him or whatever when he gets back to camp. I can't believe you do something so dangerous, but it's because she really loves him or whatever. That's Bones is filling that role. And then it's like, oh yeah, that's another thing. Like just as an aside, another theme that's consistent throughout this movie is found family. And I think it's like more aware of that theme than any of the previous movies, even though that is like a theme that runs through all of these movies. This movie is very like interested in that. It's very much like, hey, this is what you do. This is how you have other people when you're a deep space explorer with certain obsessions. You got to find the other people like you, and you got to be gay as hell with them. You know, it's the only answer. So
I gotta point something out. It's not so much about the gay stuff, but you did bring up the rocket boot elevator scene. There's like 3 different layers of wrongness in that from like technical perspective. For one, we see like 78 decks numbered. The Enterprise D doesn't even have that many decks. So like, you know, I mean, obviously this is a, actually in episode 221B, you know, Itchy plays Scratchy's ribs like a xylophone, you know, one of those nitpicks, that's fine. But another one is that we see the numbers go up as they ascend, but we know that deck numbering is descending. Deck 1 is the bridge. So, and then the third one is that as they're going up, like shot continuity just goes out the window. They go from like floor 63 to 55 to 78. Like they bounce between shots so much. Like that right there is just like rank amateur like editing.
On top of that, the jet boots, the mechanics of the jet boots is very distracting. And also it is kind of a bit of a nitpick, but like the first scene where he's climbing the mountain and then Spock like jets downwards to grab him, they don't even do like a curved scoop. He just grabs him.
Nobody ever
down.
Does a curved scoop. When you're falling in movies before like the year 2000, so long as somebody grabs you before you hit the ground, it doesn't matter if they slow your fall at all. It's the ground that hurts you, not the sudden stop.
They choose to show the jets blasting up as he's pointing down, but he's stopped, and then his legs are waving all over the place as he's pulling.
Yeah, he's like horizontal almost.
Yeah, and his legs are literally you see the like jet effect going like and like blowing around, and it's just like they're not moving at all. And then of course like the put on the brakes or whatever, like what brakes are on a fucking rocket boot? Like what are you talking about? Like it's so ridiculous. It's so patently ridiculous that like it becomes very cartoony. And yeah, there's a lot of
I want to add 2 things to that because one, I think it would be very funny to think that Spock was distracting Kirk on purpose so that he could fall and save him.
Yeah.
Like, I just think that would be a very like anime boyfriend thing to do.
It's very spurky.
And then later in the shaft scene with the boots, like they're descending because of the weight, and then they have to like make the boots go into turbo mode. Should have burned Sulu's face off. Like, what are they? How do they work if not fire? I don't understand. It's a very sci-fi, or it's it's one of those fantasy moments. Really,
they call them jet boots, I think. So, but like fire. Even so, well, no, jets aren't using fire. Jets are propelled air, but it should have knocked Sulu to the ground at the very least.
Yeah, but it would be. I feel like it would be hot at the very least.
I mean, jets do get really hot because of the compression does heat up the air. Like that's why like
steam blasting.
From the jet boots, from a sci-fi perspective, there's a lot of goofy, nonsense in these Star Trek movies. Some of it more outrageous than others. This is definitely on the like outrageous. Like they're not even trying. Like I wish they would have just anything that shows that they're like thinking about the mechanics of the jet boots. I know they're just supposed to be fun, but like it does hit cartoons so much in this movie. There's so many like cartoon elements. Also, just a small thing. Why the hell did they make that guy, the guy at the beginning, have those teeth?
Because I think he's supposed to be an alien, and
I think
those are alien teeth.
Alien teeth. It's one of the worst alien prosthetics that they've ever done. Also on that, we have a three-titted kitty.
Three-titted kitty.
Which great touch, but also,
listen, Shatner is one of the greatest to ever do it. He is so influential. Paul Verhoeven had to take notes.
Yeah. Wait. So
Total Recall was after this movie. Total Recall is the famous one for the three boobs, but this came out first.
That's wild.
Yeah, so Shatner
I was thinking about that.
An influential filmmaker.
He is a pioneer.
I mean, look, I like credit where credit is due. Like the three-titted alien from Total Recall it was an influential.
She wasn't an alien;
vision.
she was a mutant.
Mutant. Yes, that's right. Mutant.
She also that actress went on to play Ensign Sonia Gomez on TNG in a couple episodes. She's the one who spills the hot chocolate on Picard.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, I remember her.
Yep, that was three boob lady.
They should have had the three tits still. They had the rights.
I mean, she doesn't actually have three boobs.
Well,
like they didn't cast her like, oh, lucky! Wow, we were looking for just that.
Yeah, we need someone with polymastia to fill this role.
Yeah, maybe they should give her a third one because she deserves it. She did the role great, and honestly, there's
listen.
more tits in the world.
Why aren't top surgeons offering the central third boob?
Why not? It doesn't make sense to me. Okay, legitimately, I'm not going to distract from the movie too much here, but we need to seriously expand the amount of creativity we have with plastic surgery. We have so much capabilities, and our world is so fucking boring. It's like, okay, you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller. That's it. You can't do shit. Why do we not have tails? Why do we not have tails? Why do we not have tools? Where is the biohacking that we should have at this technology level? And the answer is we can't because the economy only says that thousands and thousands of plastic surgery pop-up clinics all over Florida is all that we get.
Well, and also the biohacking, quote unquote, that we have funded is shit like Neuralink, which, causes monkeys to die. And now we're putting it in people. Thanks, Elon.
Hey, did you hear that guy's Neuralink detached from his brain?
No. Oh, God.
It's floating in his skull.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Sign me up for that shit.
Okay, yeah. So I was talking about the three-titted person because I wanted to talk about it. I forgot to look up before we started whether it came first or second, but there was a couple of things in this movie that made me go, okay, a lot of Star Wars they literally used a Star Wars laser sound at one point.
They did. When they killed God, they used the Star Wars blaster noise.
Yeah, it was like, and I was just like, whoa, that's Star Wars. So there's a lot of Star Wars. There was like a lot of like Dune Dune-like stuff. But then I started
It had a
thinking
Dune
maybe it's more
aesthetic,
like maybe it's more like Lawrence of Arabia though, which is like a shared, inspiration. There was a lot of stuff where I was like, wow, this is like pulling pretty heavily from a couple of pretty notably large like media things that occurred before it. But yeah, I guess I don't really have anywhere to go with that. I want to bring up one other thing that I just remembered, which is the opening of this movie. It is so, it kind of sets the tone for the film. And I think I understand why it would be like, it leads people to be a little more negative. The opening where with the weird editing where he's just like, and then
I
like
thought that
cuts
was a
out.
great intro.
Oh,
I loved it.
I the laughing part, the editing on the laughing part was so silly to me that I couldn't help but I also laughed out loud, and I know that I like what it's doing, like which is that
he's a Vulcan.
Yeah, he's
It's
a
supposed
Vulcan.
to be
He's
like
laughing.
unsettling for him to be laughing.
It's supposed to be like, oh, that's weird, but it's like the editing is so goofy, and this whole movie has weird editing. And I do wonder if William Shatner had like Final Cut like privileges to basically be like, yeah, here's the edit we're going with. Maybe, maybe not. Whoever did, they could have done a second pass on the editing in this movie, because the editing, in my opinion, was very weird. The pacing was weird in a lot of scenes, and it was like, again, the choice of like what shots that ended up being included and how they were structured, just it threw me off. And the laugh was the first one that did it, where it's like the final cut to the like ADR audio over the silhouette after 3 other cuts that aligned with his laugh was just so silly for me. I couldn't help but like laugh out loud.
So the editor for this movie was Peter Berger, who also edited Star Trek 4, and as we'll see later, he will edit Star Trek Generations and Star Trek Insurrection. So I don't think you can lay it entirely on him. Obviously, somewhat, but I also know that this was Shatner's first directorial feature, as far as I'm aware. And I don't know, I'm sure he had his hand in the edit bay at some point.
Yeah. I mean, it does depend on the project, like how much independence an editor gets, and whether they get like whether it's like a producer that's making the final cut call or director. A lot of directors do retain the right to be like, nah, I get to determine the final cut, so I can send an editor back as many times as I want. I mean, notoriously, Dune, which we just brought up, Lynch's Dune, he fought really hard to get Final Cut, which is something that he always wants on all of his projects, to basically be able to say, nope, we got to redo, we got to do another pass on the editing here. And they did not give it to him. And that resulted in decisions that he absolutely hated, like things like the narration were decisions he had no say over. It depends a lot from project to project, but whoever made the calls on this one, I feel like they could have used a second pass with some different editing decisions. The special effects in this movie were they were all over the place. There were like the sets were great overall.
Well, yeah, for sure. Actually, a lot of the sets, because TNG was in full swing at this point, they actually made use of some TNG sets, like the corridors. I don't even think they redressed those, other than taking out the LCARS displays. So the corridors just look like TNG sets. The forward observation lounge, I'm not sure if it was using the 10 forward set or just pieces of 10 forward. Like, I know the doors to the observation lounge, those were the doors to 10 forward. They did just take those over, but the rest of it might have been a new set. Engineering, well, to be fair, the TNG engineering set was a redress of the movie engineering set anyway, so, it's kind of moving it back and forth. But actually also, because they were filming concurrently with TNG, I know Will Wheaton was like a big Trekkie before he was cast, and he like William Shatner was like his idol, and he was really excited that William Shatner was going to be, in studio like right next to him. So like he's like, hey, I got a break. I'm going to go over to the Final Frontier set and say hi to him. And Shatner was a fucking asshole to him.
Totally.
Shatner's just like, oh, you're the kid on the show. I would have never let you on my bridge. And like, how the fuck do you say that to a teenager who's like so clearly like idolizing you? Like that's inside thoughts, my man.
Yeah. Didn't someone like force Kirk to formally apologize afterwards?
I don't know that that did happen, but I do know that Roddenberry called Will Wheaton into his office and said, Bill Shatner's an ass. Don't take it personally. You've got a great crew here. I mean, the TNG cast, their family, they all love each other. They're all really tight knit and everything like that. So, and I know like Jonathan Frakes really took Will Wheaton under his wing too. So, you know, he was fine. It was just don't meet your heroes.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the sets were good. Some of the minis, like the miniatures, they were nice, and I was happy to see that it seemed like there was a decent amount of like all of the like practical effects seemed fine to me. The digital effects were a notable step down from 4, and that was kind of a bummer. There were still some ones that, even though they looked a little rough, I still liked what they were doing, like the shot of the Klingon ship like coming up over the mountain.
That was a cool shot.
Yeah, it was a cool shot. Like, I mean, it definitely looked very, very green screened, and it wasn't like perfectly composed, but I thought it was a creative shot. Everything to do with God looked goofy as can be, and
it could
like
have
the
been
head,
even goofier. Because like Shatner had this whole idea, like there's a lot of that final sequence that just is cut. Like, you know, they leave Kirk down there to basically battle God on his own, and Shatner had this whole idea that like out of those stone pillars that rose up around Shakari, there would be like a big rock monster that assembled that he'd have to fight. And like they had a rubber rock suit that a guy was in, and it just looked terrible. I think you can find some deleted scenes of it out there. There was a lot of things where budget overruns and just kind of running out of time to do it, and they had to shut it down. So basically it was just like, okay, well, he's just going to climb up some rocks and God's going to shoot laser eyes at him. Was the extent of that. That makes
so much sense. The first 2 shots of like the rocks coming up, they really look like arms. Like I was like, oh, those are 2 arms coming out of the ground. Are we going to get like a giant rock titan thing? And then it's just like, no, the next few shots are all like normal, like square spire rocks. But the first 2, I swear, are arms. Like I was just like, that is an arm, and like a rock arm. But I don't know, maybe it's just like pattern recognition firing wrong. But the fact that you're saying that they intended there to be a rock monster makes me think, oh, they had 2 shots of rock arms going up and they just threw them in with the other ones.
I don't, this is kind of just a small thing, but I do find it interesting that Sybok describes himself and his group as like, what does he say? Like something soldiers of the light or something like that. He only says it once, like galactic soldiers of the light or something. And then when they get to the planet and they finally get a response from the being that's living there, like the first thing that happens is that it goes completely dark. You know, if you didn't already know that this was not going to go the way of like, we actually did find God, the omnibenevolent being is like, oh, nope, lights are out. It's unsettling time.
No, that's good. Yeah, that's a good observation. And like also, there's some vibes around Sybok's, like the construction and motivation of Sybok. Like there is like, okay, so it does, again, I'm going to point at Dune. Like it does seem like he's trying to make the like galactic jihad, you know, but he doesn't. He just kind of does like a revolution on a shitty planet. And then, which you're like, nah, I get that. Like, they want to get off the horrible planet where they dig holes for a living.
He saw a vulnerable group that he could get to follow him. And he also saw the opportunity of, there are representatives of 3 different, you know, interstellar empires here. Okay. If I take them all hostage, there's going to be a ship capable of getting to the center of the galaxy that I can steal.
But then he kind of just does a good thing for those people, because like that's where it's like it differs from like it doesn't have the follow through on the like holy army that like Dune does, where it's like in Dune it's like, oh, you take this like nomadic group and first you liberate them and then you turn them into your personal army to go die forever in space. And it's like, but in this it's like, No, he like takes them off the planet and puts them on the nicest ship that anyone has ever seen that everyone wants to live on, and they just stay there. They don't even fight anymore after that. They're all just like hanging out. And it's like, oh, cool. We have like replicators and comfortable like places to live. And it's explicitly said that like the Enterprise is pretty much empty. So there's plenty of rooms. So it's like, oh, cool. Like you just liberated a bunch of people who were like professional hole digging guys. I don't even know what they were supposed to be digging. They only ever show him have like literal pebbles that he just shoots out of a gun.
I assume they were digging for moisture. It was a pretty barren planet.
Oof.
But like, I think so. One thing that I think is relevant is that Shatner, one of his inspirations for this story, was in the 80s seeing the rise of televangelists, was seeing the bakers on TV. Basically his idea was to, write that into a villain. But what I think, it's not, in terms of like criticizing them, I think he was going more for, he saw them as misguided rather than actively like lying and malicious and grifting. That
we know better now.
We know better now that that televangelists don't actually believe what they believe, that they are to a man just Satan incarnate.
Do you ever think how shitty it is that you have morals?
Yeah, I know.
Like how much more successful we could all be if we didn't have morals.
Yeah, I think he wanted to say, okay, like, because he saw as like, how are these people here on TV saying that they know the will of God so well? And so he's like, let's go meet God and find out, oh no, you're just completely wrong. But I also feel like there's still an element too of the criticism of the exploitative nature of televangelism in the best line in the movie, which is, what does God need with a starship?
Yeah. Yep.
Because he's God. Why does God need 10% of your income? Isn't he God? This prosperity gospel nonsense. Why do these people who have their own fucking airfields on their private mansion, like acres and acres of land, why do they need you to give them money when you are living below the poverty line?
And the very sharp dig from the creature, assuming Cybok's form. Like, what did you really come here for? What did you really come here to see? Like, God is a construction of yourself that you're projecting into the world.
Yeah. I personally think that it would have been really pointy and or pointed is the word I was looking for. Pointy is a Vulcan's ears.
It's okay. But that's a Vulcan slur. Excuse me.
Yeah. Oh well, my bad. I'm not as bad as Bones, so I still.
That's true.
But
Bones just slurs constantly.
Spock gave Bones the pass.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it's cool when you're with your friends.
But I would have liked it if Cybok said, "What do you do with the doo-doo?" and then tried to sell you your apocalypse buckets that you can eat and then shit into. Yeah, I mean, if the bakers were like an inspiration for this, like I feel like William Shatner was very, very light-handed in his criticism of that, because Cybok is like way more understandable than a figure like the Bakers or like Kenneth Copeland or any of those people. The prosperity gospel stuff is so rotten. But I mean, I can see parts of it. I can absolutely see like that angle. I do feel like the movie, it doesn't really, if it's trying to present like a holy warrior manipulating people, I don't think it does as good of a job presenting that critique. The ending is kind of like tacked on, but like the repercussions of all the things that he did is like, he was right. They were able to go into the center of the galaxy. There was an entity there. He was wrong about the nature of the entity, but they were able to do it. And it was a huge advancement forward for exploration, science, etc. And he successfully did a revolution that liberated those people and led them to living better lives. And very few of them died.
I'm trying to think, like, outside of like the assault on Nimbus 3, when, the Enterprise goes to rescue the things, like, does anybody die anywhere else? I mean, Cybok dies at the end, but like, do they like really there's very little violence in the movie.
No, it's really there's not a lot of violence at all. I don't really think so. I'm trying to think if there's anything. Even the Klingons don't really get any kills. Like they're kind of just there. That's another part of the movie.
Klingons are kind of an afterthought in the movie.
They really are. There was a part where I asked aloud, and I was like, wait, what happened to the Klingons? And then my partner was like, they showed them for a second. Remember, they were like, well, we better follow him to the center of the galaxy. They do a little cutaway, and then the Klingon lady is like, the center of the galaxy? And then he's like, yeah. And then they go right back. And it's like, wait, what? I forgot. I'm like, oh, right. You're right. They did do that. It's been other than that, a substantial scene with the Klingons has been it's been 30 minutes since we last saw these pretty main.
The Klingons feel like Venom in Spider-Man 3. Where Sam Raimi was forced to throw him in when he already had this complete story in mind with Sandman, and is and Venom appears too, just kind of tacked on. That's kind of how these feel. In this narrative. It feels more like, we need some kind of pressure to keep them moving, to keep them going forward, so that they have a reason why they can't just stop and try and delay. Okay, they've got the crew heading up to the ship. Hey, they've held us captive. Don't let us aboard the ship. Oh, wait, no, there's Klingons coming that are going to blow us all up. We better get on the ship to get away from the Klingons. Okay, get the story. Yeah,
there's a couple of things like that throughout the movie that I noticed.
Otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a couple of things like that in the movie that I feel are kind of we need to do this because it's conveniences to the story, where it feels a little bit okay, an example of this is the Enterprise being dismantled, it being in rough shape. It has very little impact on the story overall, except that they can't use the transporters. So it's we need a reason that you can't use the transporters. They're taking it out of dock early. And it's okay, well, nothing else really mattered on that front. There's not that I can remember. There's not really anything else besides the door not working, which is just literally one-off joke.
The shaft scene.
Yeah, because the shaft was taken offline. That's why they had to rocket boot up it.
All right, so that's fair. There's two things that are okay, well now they can rocket boot up the shaft instead, and they can't use the transporter. But it's and there's been tons of stories in Star Trek where they can't use the transporter for whatever reason. Usually in my experience, it's because of radiation, some kind of radiation that's no, we can't get a trace. So you got to figure out
too much ionization in the upper atmosphere.
Exactly. Yes. That exact thing. It's oh no. And I don't know why they didn't just do that. The whole thing being, I don't know. It was weird. And it felt like that with the Klingons as well. It's why are there Klingons in this movie? Well, there needs to be something that makes them move quickly all the time, because you just kind of need something like that, I guess. And it's just maybe you could have restructured that a little to have it be maybe Cybok is a little more forceful, and he's the one that's being nah, I'm gonna blow up this ship if you don't take it to heaven.
I feel like that would have just been way too much of a rehash of Khan, though.
Maybe, yeah.
I found it kind of refreshing that this is, I would describe Cybok, I guess this is splitting hairs a little bit, but I would describe him as an antagonist, but not a villain, because he is not ill-intentioned. He's I don't want to kill people. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I am just trying to meet God. That's all. Yeah. So I that's one of the things I liked about it. Yeah.
I was just thinking, because I was thinking to what they could have done with the Klingons more, and this is a goofy thought. But I was the introduction scene when they blow up Voyager 2. For one thing, I fucking love that periscope. The way that it docks into the swivel chair, that was great production design. But also Voyager 6, which became V'ger, destroyed a bunch of Klingon ships in the first one. Why isn't it just you could have just even had a joking line? It's oh, we got to stop that before it gets to the machine world and kills more of Klingons. Yeah. But
it's another one of those crappy early 20th century probes. We got to take them out. Those things are monsters. Okay, another thing that was I guess I'll say a small critique of this movie. So you have the three consoles or whatever, Literally, the only one who really does anything in the whole movie is the drunken Klingon one. And the other two just stand around and then once in a while have like a line maybe. And I was just like, that's so funny to me that they were just like, yeah, we're going to have these like two characters show up and you learn like nothing about them.
They're
like
literally
They
just
get
there.
together. At the
They
end.
do. They had they had an off-screen romance.
Yeah.
But I think there was, because like you had that whole ending sequence where like everyone is intermingling and getting drinks and stuff like that, and the idea is like, oh, we went out to find God, but what we actually found was each other, and like there's some kind of and that's very Star Trekky of like people setting aside their differences and coming together, and that was kind of the whole idea of Nimbus 3 was, look, the Romulans and the Klingons and the Federation have been at war with each other for centuries. Let's set up a shop on this planet, see if we can all work together. And that was a failed experiment, but we're still, sending token representation there. The Romulan representative, Caitlin Dar, what was up with her dialogue? Like every single line she had was ADR'd pretty badly.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah, it's weird.
I always noticed that. Like bad ADR stands out to me, and it was inexplicable as far as I can tell.
Like I'm almost wondering, like, was it like a different actor doing the voiceover
Maybe,
lines?
yeah.
Like, because it couldn't have just been an issue of like set conditions, because like the Cord and St. John Talbot, the other
That
two,
was insane.
that was all
Their audio.
insane. It was just her stuff. So I'm wondering if you just like, what was that
Yeah, I
movie
don't
that
know.
Gina Carano was in where they just replaced all of her dialogue with like somebody else ADRing it in because she was such a bad actor?
God.
Yeah, I just
Was
wonder
that
if
a
it's
Star
something
Wars
like that.
movie or something?
No, this was pre-Star Wars.
Yeah, she was in The
Oh.
Mandalorian, but
Yeah.
this is different.
This
I
was
don't know what
pre-Star
movie
Wars.
she's been in.
This was like the first movie that she'd starred in. Like that.
Dear
She was
God,
like the
that's
main
bad.
character in the movie, and they replaced all of her dialogue with another actress's voice.
That's embarrassing. I feel bad, except that she's the worst.
I haven't seen that movie, so I can't speak to how bad it is. But as long as we're talking bad ADR, was it Elysium? Was that the movie with Matt Damon with the big spaceship? Jodie Foster's character, like she had portrayed that character with a French accent for the entire film, and then they decided it didn't work out, so they had her dub it back over with a regular, and that's why she sounds so weird in that movie.
It's like House of the Dragon too. There was a character in the first season who had like a weird accent, and it was terribly ADR'd, and then they decided to pull back on the accent a little bit in the second season, and everybody's like, what a relief, because that was a huge distraction.
The ADR in this movie it was like the most noticeable of any of the movies. It was very distracting. There's a lot of things like that. So in conclusion on this movie for me, I get why this is the least popular, and I will agree that overall it probably is the worst, though it's in competition with Search for Spock, in my opinion. So I get it. But Star Trek fans, this is a message to you from the future. Back to 1989, you all have no idea how bad it's going to get. If you think this movie is a 27, your minds are going to crater when you encounter the movies that they're shoveling out onto us these days, the garbage we have to sift through. There are movies so bad that you would think this movie is like a 77. Oh wow, this movie's okay. I had a fun time. People seem to be enjoying themselves. It was a entertaining little space romp, with some tacky, editing choices and some tacky jokes, and maybe a little bit of bad special effects. You have no idea how bad it's going to get. Okay,
I don't know that Into Darkness is going to come out.
Yes,
I don't know yet. I'm
They
just
don't know the
thinking
Into
too.
Darkness.
They don't like Into Darkness as a movie is so bad that it came in 14th in a ranking of the Star Trek movies best to worst. And at the time, there were only 13 Star Trek movies. So
Wow.
they added in Galaxy Quest, which I think came in number 6 or 7.
Oh yeah, we should do Galaxy Quest.
I want to do Galaxy Quest. I think we'll do
that'll be
Galaxy Quest.
so good.
Yeah, no, like it's not a great movie. I think it's a great B movie. And like, yeah, just this is a movie that you should watch with your friends. to not take seriously, to get drunk and just shit talk it the whole time. I think it's great for that. Yeah.
You know, something to keep you awake, because there are some pacing issues in this movie that makes it a little bit of a snoozer at times. And yeah, it's not perfect. It's not a freaking 27U 1989 critics, but all right.
My closing statement is that Uhura dancing, fascinating decision.
Oh my God. I
That
forgot
was so
about
weird.
that.
Yeah, it was real weird. And finally, hold your horse, Captain.
There was a blue horse too. There were blue space horses.
Little unicorn horns.
That can be neck pinched.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that too. The horse neck pinch. Oh my God. Okay, the Uhura dancing. I was like, what on earth is going on?
Yeah, it was weird.
It was a weird moment. It was weird.
And she was actually naked. She was actually naked
really?
on set. Yes,
No.
she was wearing like a G-string. That was about it.
Intimacy coordinator, when?
I mean, okay, but look, I don't want to wait.
I think she was happy to sing in Star Trek because singing has always been her first passion. She wanted to quit Star Trek to pursue her singing career, but MLK said it's actually super important that you stay on this show. And like there has been a lot of conversation about Nichelle Nichols, especially since she passed, about the sacrifices that she made to her career for like furthering, just the Black cause, for furthering civil rights. Because like she was at a party with MLK and she told him she was going to quit the show because there was nothing for her to do. And he's like, you're marching up there every single time you're on screen. So, but her first passion was music. She would go on tour and do songs and stuff like that. But like, it never took off the way that like it was where she was, the lady who answered the phones on a cheap 60s TV show.
Yeah. But I mean, she's amazing. I love her.
And she's great.
Maybe she was super into that scene. I'm open to it. I'm not going to say that it was like, it's a weird scene. No doubt.
It is a weird scene.
Weird scene. But maybe she was cool with it. I don't know.
All right. Any other final thoughts?
No, I think we hit everything, especially with that horse neck pinch.
Yeah. Important.
Shatner wanted that to be a unicorn. And Roddenberry's like, this isn't space fantasy. We ditch the horn. They can be blue. It can be a blue space horn.
But whatever.
But it still had the horns. Yeah, it still had horns. Yeah.
Maybe they weren't as emphasized because, like, I know he wanted Sybok to be like in the first scene riding up on a very clear unicorn.
Yeah, I mean, and you can see the horn in the first scene. That was what I was gonna say. Yeah, in the first scene,
it must have been diminished because I don't remember the horn.
It's a tiny horn. It is true.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, it's still there. But yeah, no. Three Titty Kitty.
Three Titty Kitty.
True.
Yeah.
All hail Three Titty Kitty.
All right. Well,
Alrighty.
I have been Gayfesh.
I'm Moss.
And I'm DemonMama.
And next time we will see you in the undiscovered country.
Yo! Bye!
Bye.